Hello there, Commonwealth from here. Zelda's finishing the Breath and Tears of the Kingdom era. And with the substantial power boost of the Nintendo Switch 2, one may wonder what 2026, so Zelda's 40th anniversary and beyond, will offer. Well, it depends on what art direction the Zelda team is taking us. So be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell. Zelda has always reinvented itself, if not through open-air maps and gameplay, then through its visuals, or more specifically, art styles. After Ocarina Majora's N64 Realism, Wind Waker had a new cel-shaded art style which became the best aging. Twilight Princess tried realism once again, but aged poorly, so Skyward Sword, and then to an extent Breath and Tears, went for a middle ground between cartoon and realism. Now we are at another crossroad when it comes to visuals.
Since, believe it or not, the moment we enter Zelda's 40th anniversary, it will have been 7 years since we had the only new Zelda art style introduced on the Nintendo Switch. Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom's too cute to handle diorama style. Still, if we are talking 3D Zelda exclusively, then we are heading to 12 years since Eiji Onuma's historic finger snap. Naturally, depending on when the first not on Nintendo Switch 1 Zelda project is revealed exclusively for Switch 2, since both a remake and the next Zelda could be seen in 2026. In other words, with a potential general Nintendo Direct in February, we could have our first taste of Switch 2 Zelda graphics before Switch 2 Pokemon. No, Legends of ZA doesn't count as it is a Switch 1 game that has seen upgrades in its Switch 2 edition. More on next-gen Pokemon vs. Zelda soon, but first, let's have a look at the options. Since on one end we have Cyberpunk running on the Switch 2 in 1080p 40fps, and on the other, well, the Zelda we have now in upscaled 4K 60fps. The question is, what does the Zelda team want when they finally have near unlimited power compared to what they have had to struggle with and optimize for well over 10 years?
Perhaps a middle ground, since producer Eiji Onuma and director Hidemaru Fujibayashi cannot go all the way to Cyberpunk's level and still have a new Zelda in upscaled 4K. At the same time, much between Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 edition and the Unreal Engine tech demo of CD Projekt Red's next new game, Witcher 4, is possible. A game that might come out near the next Zelda game, depending on when, not before 2027 is, for this particular project. No matter what, after over 10 years, 3D Zelda will change as it always does when making a big generational jump. Though it also depends on how crazy gameplay the Zelda team want for this game. After all, the Tokyo Mario team have also raised the stakes when it comes to gameplay and actually being able to destroy your surroundings through Donkey Kong Bananas. At the same time, there's no doubt that the 3D part of our most beloved franchise is in many ways the graphical showcase of every new Nintendo system. The only exception has been the GameCube, but even it had the best reveal of all time in 2004. In other words, the generational wow effect matters, which art style is definitely a part of, though it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to a brand new game. After all, with the reveal of the 3DS in 2010, Nintendo decided to showcase its power with Ocarina of Time 3D, which makes for a very interesting scenario, the icon reinvented for a new age. And interestingly enough, the current rumors are pointing to a repeat of just that, though this time instead of in 240p 30fps, 2160p and 60fps, well, upscaled. That's right, Ocarina of Time, not the next open-air game, could be the first Switch 2 exclusive Zelda to be revealed and start the 40th anniversary of the franchise.
Still, this is where expectations can rise, including graphically, as we have to realize the true potential of Nintendo-developed games: optimization. Here we enter the key ingredient, or second part of the rumor, that Ocarina of Time on Switch 2 is being developed by Nintendo, not Grezzo, who did Ocarina of Time 3D, or Tantalus, who did Twilight Princess HD. With this in mind, a high-level, realistic, detailed art style can be expected in 4K 60fps, and with it, the best-looking Zelda game yet, one that can push boundaries and break established graphical conventions. And Ocarina of Time is the perfect candidate, as it hasn't seen an overhaul in over 15 years. That's right, since Zelda's 25th anniversary. Could it be up there with the Unreal Engine 4 and 5 projects we have seen in recent years? It can get close visually, and with some new content, will easily win over the skeptics and bring more people into the Nintendo Switch 2 Owners Club. You know what else could do that? Giving us a first look of the next generation Zelda experience, the Switch 2 exclusive brand new Zelda. We haven't had this moment of a new open world Hyrule with a new 3D Link since June 2014. Though, wouldn't revealing Ocarina 4K in the next Zelda be a little too much visually in 2026?
Not really, since in 2019, Nintendo first revealed Link's Awakening HD in February, and then a few months later in June, before the game was out, we got the first look at what would become Tears of the Kingdom. Nintendo could thus pull a double move, but this time reveal something unprecedented. 2 3D games with unrivaled graphics, and then let us buy and play one of them from start to finish the same year. A genius strategy that could truly demonstrate the real power of the Nintendo Switch 2, perhaps even alongside what Monolith Soft has planned from their main studio. Still, Zelda is the big seller, and Nintendo knows that Ocarina of Time 4K alone can sell over 10 million copies, starting from the second half of 2026. Then we have the next open-air Zelda game. Definitely not out in 2026, but it would actually surprise me if we don't see it sometime throughout this year. Since the longest we have gone from a new 3D Zelda release to the reveal of the next one was from Twilight Princess to Skyward Sword. Although we might also have to wait until 2027, but when it will happen, it will be on a whole different level. A more realistic looking art style is in the cards, though the question begs, what kind of realism? Since we also know that Pokemon and Game Freak are already experimenting in this direction with Gen 10, their first Switch 2 exclusive Pokemon game.
According to this leaked image, the art style is a natural evolution, no pun intended, of the ones we saw in the Switch 1 Pokemon games. Perhaps this is what the Zelda team will aim for on Switch 2, an evolution of what we saw in Breath and Tears, which would be something, as those games already look great on Switch 1, unlike Pokemon.
At the same time, you will never see a Zelda game that looks as realistic as something like Red Dead Redemption 2 or Death Stranding. As even Twilight Princess, with environments that look real for its time, still had those expressive characters with big eyes and larger-than-life personalities. If the next Zelda game were to revisit this style or something similar, it could resemble the 2011 Wii U tech demo. Well, a next-gen version of this one. The fact that it's still talked about 14 years later goes to show how impressive it looks. But there was no way an open-world Zelda game was going to look like this and run well on the Wii U, let alone the Nintendo Switch. But now we have the technology with Nintendo Switch 2. It's already proven that it can handle massive open-world experiences with the Switch 2 editions of Breath and Tears, as they are the masters of optimizing their games for their own hardware, especially with the help of the Kyoto branch of Monolith Soft. They do just as titanic work as the main Monolith Soft Tokyo team, who have put their gargantuan Xenoblade Chronicles games on Nintendo hardware since the Wii.
So we've established that the game is going to look great on Switch 2 regardless of which art style it uses. Of course, that all depends on how hard the Zelda team is going to push the Switch 2 limitations. After all, it's shocking that no Switch 1 console burst into flames after playing Tears of the Kingdom with its astronomical open world and insane physics engine. It wouldn't be surprising if the frame rate was kept at 30 just to make room for all the crazy stuff we might do in the next Zelda game. So far though, Nintendo has been doing a great job at keeping their Switch 2 games at 60 FPS or above, as we're seeing with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond with its 120 FPS performance mode. However, this is also a Switch 1 game, and most of the Switch 2 games so far either started development on Switch 1 or will come to both Switch 1 and 2. So really, we haven't seen the full potential of this machine just yet. That's where we're hoping the next Zelda game comes in, or first, a major 4K remake. Both of these titles will be a demonstration of what Switch 2 is capable of graphics-wise. This is part of why we might also see one of these games announced sooner rather than later, to get people who haven't bought a Switch 2 yet excited at the prospect of either a full-blown 4K remake of one of the greatest games of all time, or an open-air Zelda game with cutting-edge graphics the Switch 1 couldn't even dream of producing.
As for the art style of the next Zelda, we would be satisfied with an evolution of the one from Breath and Tears. We also liked it when Nintendo would experiment with different art styles for Zelda games back in the day. With that in mind, we would gladly accept a more realistic art style akin to Twilight Princess without getting as gritty as something like Red Dead. Could you imagine seeing Link with a normal human face? I couldn't. Yet again, we're getting that in the live-action Zelda movie in 2027, so I guess we'll have to brace ourselves for that. But now we would like to hear from you. What do you want the first Switch 2 exclusive Zelda game or new game and remakes to look like? Sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe and press notification bell. And a big thanks to you for watching and to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons, with special shoutouts to all our new patrons: Sander Myren Nilsen, Vuko, Josh2, Oscar Flores, Dad Moblin, Ben Dover, James Lieberman, Trey Payne, Andy, and Tobias Björn. The same goes to our loyal heroes: Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf, and Kintaro. You rock, and please enjoy these awesome videos.